without further ado, I guess I'll get started here. I'm talking about Peachtree, which is our 82 unit in Augusta, Georgia. But what I wanted to first touch upon was why I joined Jake and Geno, and why they made it such a clear choice in the beginning for me. Like I said before, I was looking for, to get into multifamily. I had never done it, neither had my family. So what better way to learn it than through a coach, right? I'm decreasing my timetable, I'm amplifying my efforts, and I'm networking with like-minded individuals. So that was the clear deciding factor for getting into multifamily. Now, who is it going to be, right? It has to be somebody relatable. What better relation than two other Italians? And I honestly felt like, talking to these guys and listening to them on a podcast, it felt like it was, like my family dinner. Like that's how my family would talk to one another. We'd just camaraderie, things like that. There's proof of concept. You guys had already done it. We had similar jobs in our W-2 setting, and you guys had done it. So I can say proof of concept from going from 0 to, over 1,000 units for you guys. The main component for me out of all the coaching programs out there, everybody teaches you how to buy it, but nobody teaches you how to manage it, right? And so when I researched Jake and Geno, there's that 3-step stool, right? With buy right, manage right, and finance right. For me, I understood the value of a good business plan, right? You can buy it right, but until you execute on that business plan, that financial investment is nothing until that's executed correctly. So that manage right portion was the lock for me for Jake and Geno that no other coaching program that I saw, or at least researched, had. So that was another thing that I really enjoyed about Jake and Geno.
Mike, you just made best friends with Jake. I think Jake can just sign off right now. His night's over right there. After hearing manage
Dude,
right,
hey, it's done. A grind, man. It's a grind, but we love it. So it's great having it in house, man.
Yeah, it absolutely is. There's some stuff that they don't throw in books that you learn.
We've seen some shit.
But the other things were accountability. I needed some accountability. The accountability pods were great, really pushed us, and I'll touch upon that in our slides in the next slide, actually. Building confidence is obviously a very important thing. With me never doing this before, you put me in a hospital, I'm fine, but in a multifamily setting, I need a little confidence boost. So the confidence was great. Of course, amazing networking, and the family atmosphere that this group has really established is amazing. So you can pick up the phone and call anybody at any state, and you probably have a place to stay overnight to talk multifamily. So
I love that. Real quick before you go to the next slide, that amazing networking. You met Jason Bass at one of those events, didn't you? Yes. I remember sitting there at the cocktail hour and like, you're there. I'm like, I finally get to meet you. And you meet your partner, Jason Bass, at one of these events. And that was the turning point, I think, for you, because you're sitting around there, you had the accountability, but you were just like, what market should I go into? And you finally met your partner at an event. So kudos to you for taking action, right? It's education times action, actually doing the work, but actually going out to these events and networking and talking with people and underwriting deals and walking these deals. That's what's going to ultimately lead to that success, Mike.
So true, Gino. So true. And actually, that's a good segue for the next slide.
Woo.
So Jay Bass, that's, it's either Jay or Jason. I think his mom calls him Jason, but we call him Jay. But great guy from New Jersey, met an accountability pod when we first started. And he's always been a go-getter. This guy's been 0 to 100 from the get-go. And I just kind of watched in our accountability pods. He was the first guy in the group to get the first deal. And I just kind of, watched and just at amazement, this guy is really killing it, So of course you think, I gotta hook up with this guy. I gotta be friends with this guy. And he has been a great partner. That's how I got into this deal. We've known each other for 3 years, have gone to boot camps together, and still, talk outside of work. So this is a great point in this whole, presentation of networking, right? Because Jason also likes to talk about multifamily outside in the open, like just to friends, family, whatnot. And that's how we met Antonio, who was our other partner in this deal. Antonio is his chiropractor. So they got into this great conversation. And and started talking about multifamily, and Antonio and Jason got their first deal right off the bat there in 2019. And they were off to the races. We also brought on Eric Martinez, who's been a great partner. All three of these guys are from Jersey. I'm the lone soul in Omaha, Nebraska. So that's just great that you can network like that and get with these four like-minded individuals, right? The last part I want to say about this is it's important that all your JV partners or partners that you go in with have a same like-minded path or plan for the property, what you're going to do with it, how you're going to, refi and roll, that there's no hiccups, because this is a legally binding document. You're all guarantors, and you really want to be comfortable with these people. And all three of these guys are solid individuals. And I'm very, proud to be a part of this joint venture team with them.
Mike, do you mind if I share real quick about Jason Bass's story? Because I remember coaching Jason. He joined within 3 months. He met and closed on that very first deal from New Jersey. I'm like, I can't believe it. Within 3 months, closing that first deal. But I remember telling him, Jason, just let everybody know what you're doing. Let everyone know that you're investing in real estate. The next day, he goes to his chiropractor's office, which is Antonio, and he's like, Antonio, I'm doing real estate, multifamily. They struck up the conversation. So there's a tip for everybody. Don't be afraid to let people know what you do. Strike up that conversation. Let them know about multifamily. They may be curious. They may not. If they're not interested, say, hey, do you know anybody who would be interested in investing in multifamily? Just start up the conversation. You never know who you'll meet out there.
Very true. And those two guys just sold their third deal in South Carolina, and it did very well on that. So awesome. Great point. So like I said, I'm going to be talking about our deal in Augusta, Georgia. This is an 82 unit. It's a mom and pop, vintage 1970 to 80s. It's a step. Each block of buildings was built in a different era, Class C. And what we really liked about this was the townhouse style with the 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath. It is really, we've got some long-standing residents there. And it's just a great opportunity in this area too, with that mix. We've also got some 1-beds, and we snagged some studios, and I'll get into that later. But like every MSA in the nation, there's a limited, housing supply of apartments and houses. That's what we're running into here with Augusta, with the population growth. We got lucky on this area. We've got gentrifying areas to the north and to the south. We've got a Somerville area to the north, which is kind of like their medical district. Augusta University is just up north. And then they just announced in the south that Regency Mall is being redeveloped, which is about 2 to 3 miles from this property. And that's, so we're kind of sitting in the middle of both of those items, which is great. The rents are well below market, 200 to 350. We've actually got one that's 400 below. We saw a lot of deferred maintenance, no bill backs for utilities. So this is shaping up to be a really good, chomping at the bit kind of property. The thing that we liked also is that the median income in the median income in this area is 54,000. And so if we took that and applied like a 20% budget for housing on that, we're getting to about 1,100 for potential rent. And our rents right now are around $825 to $850 a month. So that's a good sign for us.
Right now.
Mm-hmm.
Seems low.
Yeah. And it's gone quickly in the last couple months. We've actually increased some 80 to 90% rent wise.
Increased 80 to 90%.
Mm-hmm.
Mike, wow. let me jump in here real quick, because I want all the listeners to see what's going on here. Is Mike's buyer criteria. This is something that Jake and I are always talking about. We love townhome styles. We like the 2-bed, 1.5 bath townhomes. We love that median income. It's a really good median income. Anything above 50,000, we're looking back. The no bill back for utilities. That's another huge. If you're talking $45 per door per unit at 80 units, that's an additional about $4,000 a month in revenue, which is about $50,000 a year. At a 5 or 6 cap, you can see the amount of money they're going to be making on this property. I mean, it's amazing. We like the vintage. all the different value adds on the potential washer dryer for additional income. We love that as well. So we see your buy right criteria, and there's brick on there as well, pitched roofs. Anything else that Jake, do you see stands out on this deal? That
I want to hear about the management. I just don't want to get ahead of him here.
Oh,
yes, and that's a big part of this whole closers club is the management side, because we did have to switch. We're a year in, and we had to switch management probably 4 to 5 months into it. So that's why, you know, we're still, and I'll get into that a little bit later, but there's some important pieces to take away from that section from this presentation. So we'll certainly touch upon that, Jake, in the next couple slides. The last couple things is this is another big thing for us. The water usage was out of control. And when I was doing the water bills, we had one that came back at 560,000 gallons in 1 month. And I had to look up.
What does that equate to per unit? I think that's an easy way for people to, because that's a lot of gallons, but like on average, is that $100 per month? Is it 200? Do you know roughly where that landed?
Our total bill for that one was about 5,600 for 1 month.
Okay.
And we had one property that was the culprit for that. We have 3 or 4 surrounding properties that were all on the, you know, with that same bill. But this one property in particular, our 52 unit, this is they use 560,000 gallons for 52 units in 1 month. Wow. So an Olympic swimming pool,
well over $100. Yeah, well over $100 a unit. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Too much.
Yeah. And then we had a potential for washer and dryer additions as well. There's little sections on the back of these townhomes. It's something that they go outside and use that's covered and locked with a door. So we have that potential.
So was it just leaking, or were they running a car wash out of it, or what was going on?
Yeah. So it was deferred maintenance. So we actually had American Water Leak company come in and take a look. They did their sonar down through the water lines, couldn't find any really big leaks. So really the culprit is each individual unit, water heaters, leaky faucets, leaky toilets, the whole bit. And that falls under major deferred maintenance for us. You know, so that was
those water heaters will kill your floors too, man. You know, so it's just when they start leaking, it just becomes a much greater problem. So you got to get to those. Yeah.
So why Augusta? That's the main question I get from a lot of my friends. Is why Augusta? What's so special about Augusta, other than, you know, the golf tournament, the Masters?
Bagger Vance.
Yep. And the Masters brings in about 125 million to the area every year, which is great, but that's obviously nothing to hang your hat on. So we really needed to get down into the weeds with the market itself. One of the major things that Jason had caught on early is that Augusta was approved for a cybersecurity national headquarters. So Fort Gordon there is the actual national headquarters for the cybersecurity, and everybody's talking about cybersecurity now.
Can I jump in here for a second?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I'm getting this stupid Instagram thing. There's like 2 or 3 accounts out there where they've spelled my name. They've made it like STAN. So if we're talking about cybersecurity, if you're getting a random Instagram request from me, it ain't me. Okay. It ain't me. Tell this guy to fly a kite. He's asking about some kind of trading scenario. It's a scam. We're reporting it, but there's nothing we can do about it. So this is here to stay.
He's got more people following him than you, though, bro. He's got more people on his Instagram than you do.
I gotta figure it out. You know, I gotta maybe ask him for some tips here. You know, but
you just got to say the real Stenziano, the real deal Stenziano. That's what you got to call yourself now, bro. I mean,
something. But anyway, so my point is that, you know, I think cybersecurity is here to stay. That's all. You know.
Yes, and we'll put in a good word for you, Jake, for your Instagram account.
We'll just get the faker out of there. That's all we want. So,
but cybersecurity is bringing in a lot with Fort Hood. With that comes private industries that want to take advantage of the area. Augusta University has also invested money into cybersecurity. They have a special cybersecurity program that's nationally recognized. So you're going to bring in, you know, students, you're going to bring in third party, you're going to bring in private industry, and that's already we've begun to see that in downtown Augusta. This is where the cybersecurity center is downtown Augusta. They've built this building up to the top already. This lower one is their second edition that will be built in the next couple years. But really, this town is not huge. It's not a million. It's probably what, 500,000, but it has good potential. And that's what we liked about it. Its future job growth is 38.5. And I think the national average is 36%. So we're a little bit above the curve on that. Forecasted rent growth to the end of this year is 7.7. That could be exceeded. This was early numbers based on late 21. And rent growth over the last 5 years, this is what's kind of cool for us, is that even through the pandemic and before the pandemic, they still averaged about 4%. So, I mean, around here in Omaha, it's about 2 to 3% growth, but there it's 4%. So that was really kind of bode well for us with the rents. And then population growth, it's not in Austin, it's not a Jacksonville, but still there's some steady growth at 4.3% over the next 5 years. So, it's one of those kind of sub markets that we really liked, that was kind of out of the, in the weeds, so to say. But the broker relations on this one were so important because Jason already had a track record in Augusta. They knew he could close. They knew that he had already closed and that he was managing it right, and that he was out there looking for more. And then he had more investors to go for bigger deals. So this broker that we had been talking to knew this gentleman that was selling a 52 unit, or he was kind of on the fence about it. Didn't really know if he wanted to sell it or not, had owned it about 10 years. And so he really, just was kind of fishing for it. Jason was down in Augusta looking at another property and said, hey, you know what, Mr. Broker, I want to swing by that 52 unit you told me about, if you don't mind, because this one is not panning out. I just want to take a look at the 52 unit. And so that's what he did, is he went down, got to meet the broker, and talked to the owner actually. And the owner was done. He was done managing. He was complaining about residents. And he could just tell, Jason could just tell that he was on the cusp of selling.
Burnout.
Yeah. And so
was he managing it himself?
What's that?
Was he managing it himself?
Yes.
That's beautiful.
He was, and his wife was running the books. And then he had a local guy that was his maintenance man that was just his duct tape general.
So guys, everybody on the call right now, when you see that is a big time green light. There's been so many instances where you get to meet these folks. They're managing themselves. They're taking phone calls directly to their cell phone. They're getting worn out. They want out. And we've seen it. We've been there. This is such a great opportunity. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. And I think everyone needs to write these key lessons down, or just always remember them, because I think it's really important. Always ask if there are other properties. When you're on a tour with a broker, you just never know. Say, Mr. and Mrs. Broker, are there any other deals out there that you can show me? Just ask. It's such a basic question. Sometimes we forget. We did the same thing on our first syndication. Jake was touring properties in Louisville, toured 3 or 4 properties. And finally he said, do you have any other ones? And then they said, yep, we've got one more to show you. And then when Jake got on the property, 132 units, he saw the tractor there. He saw the mom and pops. He's like, this is the one. But it was the
owners were there, Gino. And I thought they were like the managers, and they were asking me if I wanted water. I found out that it was actually the owners at one point. And then when I started to realize that they were burned out, I started asking them the questions. What's life look like when you're not managing this anymore? Boy, I bet you can't wait to take that next vacation. And then you start seeding the future to them, and it becomes very clear. So I think that if you get that opportunity, not always going to happen. It's definitely a smart way to play it.
I love that. Number 2 is know your numbers. It's really important to understand your numbers. Fall in love with the numbers. Don't fall in love with the deal. And the third one, real important, Mike, you're right. Be assertive with the broker, but be assertive, but make sure, do what you say and say what you do. If you're going to put in an offer, put in an offer. If you're going to perform, make sure you're able to perform, because you don't want to be that person who tries to put the deal on the contract and then can't close, because that broker is never going to want to work with you. And hats off to Zachary. I see the comment from Zachary, gained 2 properties that way. I mean, it works. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for mom and pop owners out there who are burned out and who are motivated.
And they got a duct tape general running the property for them.
We're going to use that tomorrow, bro. That's going to be our slogan on the next podcast. Duct tape general.
That's right. But yes, you're right. we initially went in on the 52 unit and we asked what else they had. And he had 30 other units that were surrounding this property in yellow. And we said, let's make an offer on everything. So we crunched the numbers and got him the bid that day, which made him think about over the weekend. So, and he said, yes.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it was. With everything going on in the market now, financing is such a talking point, right? And this is back in August 2021 when we were coming out of the pandemic and rates were still low. And we thought, well, these rates are going to be low for a while. Let's go ahead and put it on. You know, we have a great relationship with a local credit union there, and they offered us great terms, 3.69, 5-year term, 25-year AM, 18 IO, and they were going to fund up to 900,000 in CapEx and throw it back on the loan. But the best part about this whole loan is that last one, and no prepayment penalty. So this allows us to make shifts quickly. If we were to sell or needed to sell, if the market turned and we had value in equity. But this was a great point, that you need to look at credit unions. And I think that they're going to be, these banks are going to be very popular in the next 6 to 12 months based on the market rate, just because they've got lower interest rates and lower entry to kind of get that loan. So
what's the long-term plans? Are you looking to hold the deal, potentially refi to agency, or what are you thinking?
Good question, Jake. So our initial pro forma had a 3-year hold with a refi and a 7-year sale, or 7 years we would go into long-term financing. That was the initial plan with this. Obviously, things have changed, and we were able to exceed our equity, goals for the 3rd year, and we're actually looking to refi in a couple months. So in about a year, we'll try to refi out with that 30% equity gain on this property.
This deal is going to be a cash monster. I mean, this is going to be a nice cash flowing deal, isn't it? So that's why sometimes when you go in and you're thinking, hey, I may sell this deal, but when you see that cash flow coming in every month, and we talk about the cash flow snowball, it's like if you can repurpose that equity, got that deal on the conveyor belt, and after 2 years it matriculates, you're able to pull that equity out and repurpose it into another deal. That is phenomenal. That's when you start getting hooked on buying multifamily for the long term, and you're able to buy these deals for cash flow. So congratulations. Lizanette asks, do you know how they determine the CapEx max? Did you guys come up with a budget and say, hey, this is what we need for CapEx requirements?
Yeah, we had done an initial assessment. If we wanted to do all the unit turns and the other CapEx items that were deferred maintenance, we were budgeting about $1 million for that. Now, were we going to use that whole thing? No, we weren't. But the bank, when we submitted the plan to them, they understood where we were going and how we were going to try to get there. And so that was one of the key lessons down there is really perform a professional, a plan to the bank. Because I've seen a lot of people just call their banker up and say, this is what I want to buy. And the banker has no information, no plan, no nothing. So if you can get something together in a plan and make it very organized and professional, it will bode well for you when they go to talk about your loan at the meeting with their
well, you give them bankers. Something, right?
What's that?
Give them something, because they're essentially your sales rep at the table. So you, especially for these smaller banks, you got to be professional, credibility book, budget, what the money is going to be used for, after repair, projections, et cetera. So,
and Jake, more importantly, they're the biggest partner on this deal. They're funding 75 to 80% of this deal. So you better go up there and be professional with them. And I think one other tip, Mike, I'm sure you guys all performed, but if you do have partners out there, make sure that you tell your partners when it's go time to have your personal financial statement ready, to have all your docs ready, to have your tax returns ready, because this is go time. And you don't want one of your partners lagging, because if there's 3 or 4 of you partners on this deal and one doesn't have the docs in, it don't count. They ain't moving forward. So make sure you've got everything lined up and ready to go. So I'm sure you guys did already, because Jason had already done a couple of deals. So, but I love these key lessons. Everyone write these down. I love that business plan. I love talk to bankers in terms of how you're mitigating their risk. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for the absolute bare minimum risk. And if you come up with a business plan, and if you come up with the idea that, hey, we're raising rents, this is really evaluation through operation as well as renovation. Also, I'm sure you mentioned that as well. It's not, you're not going in there and just turning units and just raising rents. You have operationally a lot of expenses on the table that you're going to get rid of and increase the NOI through those expenses. That's awesome. And I love this third one. Know the current lending environment. Lending is changing right now, and credit unions may be a viable option, like you said, in the next 6 to 12 months. So thanks for that little golden nugget as well. It's a great idea, Mike.
Yeah, excellent. And it's really happening so quickly, right? Unlike any other time in our investing history, right, of multifamily, things happen in 2 months time, right? That used to take 5 years to do. So that's why I would say, keep that mortgage broker or banker on the phone and touch base with them on a week or monthly basis, especially if you're looking for another property. So
thanks.
Bill was wondering, did you have a prior relationship with a lender?
Yeah, Jason actually had SRP Credit Union with his previous 26 unit deal. So he had formed a relationship with the guy, with the gentleman who is now the vice president of the bank, which always helps. So yes, form relationships with a bank, and they will come back once they see you are a professional and know how you work and how you operate a property. You'll be the first one on their docket, guaranteed, because you are professional and you say what you're going to do. So thank you, Jason, for that one.
Wow, great purchase price. Look at that, $60,900 a door. The replacement.
I love everything about this deal.
I mean, I want everyone to take a real quick picture of this one. I mean, even at $10,000 a door, you're still at $70 a door with rents going in probably, I don't know, sub thousand. So that's Jake is always talking about that 1% rule. You just blow by that 1% rule with that. The utility bill back is awesome. Decreasing water usage is just another manage right play over there. That tenant demographic, you're raising the tenant base on there. This is great. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on here, and I love the exit strategy and the ability for you to pivot through the exit strategy. You had one exit strategy going forward, but you're able to say, hey, I'm flexible and I see what this property is doing. And all of a sudden, the ability to raise those rents to what you didn't think you could get, now you're seeing that you can get even more. And if, at that 80 units, that's a deal where you can get a management company. It's big enough where, hey, you can hire professional property management and you can make something happen with this property.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And the other key point on this too is that we're all JV members, so we're not syndicating this deal. So we can move quickly on this without doing preferred equity or, distributions or anything like that. So for us, knowing that the market was potentially going to shift on us while we had our first 3 years under ownership, we could move quickly, get that equity quickly, and try to refinance out, which is what we're doing here. So that's why we didn't take any distributions. We kept the money in for turns, for CapEx expenses, for repairs and maintenance. So that was another thing too, is when you're in a JV, you have a lot more, I think, freedom with your cash flow. And so you can, at the top of this market, you can act quickly and gain some quick value or equity on this deal and still be able to refi out. So that was very beneficial for us, that we don't have to, do a syndicate.
Well, you guys got to be sitting on a ton of cash now too, with the money that was provided by the bank and, keeping the money in at this point. So that's very strong position. What's the highest rent that you've achieved so far?
So we've got about, our highest rent thus far is $850 plus a 45 bill back. Okay. We've started to take a new type of tenant with a HUD VASH program, which are basically VA veterans. It's similar to Section 8, but it's for veterans, right? Which they have way better caseworkers that are more. I mean, they have less.
They're veterans too.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great. Yeah.
And so those are offered now for 2 bedrooms at $895 plus bill back of water. That's awesome. So we've got one HUD VASH that's moving in the next month or so. So we're going to try it out to see how it works and see, because there's always other options, right? With tenants and things.
I just want to see it stick like a 1,200 out there and see what the market tells you. What are the comps saying to you?
If we blew out, if we completely renovated these units, we could probably be in the I don't know. It's hard to say, 950 range.
You guys got a $900,000 budget there, man. You can test and measure here. Let's see what the market tells us.
Well, in any case, guys, you don't have to underwrite a deal that's all in at 70.
I mean, you're doing great. I'm just saying, like, I think I'm just wondering what your ceiling is, because I think you got a nice little run ahead
Well,
of you,
Jake, this could be a two-prong approach where, you refi maybe back to community, and then maybe in the next 2 years, you just continue the renovation and get that other bump up. This is something where you don't have to really go crazy and spend a ton of money to rehab a unit to get that top rent. I mean, if you're doing it and you're achieving $900 at 70 a door, that's really a ton of cash flow. You've created a lot of equity on this deal.
What's the zip code? That's why I'm gonna play this for a second here.
It's I'll give it to you if you want.
Yeah.
But it's 30904. And that's a good point, Gino, because that was our main goal, was to, with the market where it was at, to refi quickly. And so for us, if we would have taken that whole 900,000 out, right, our loan, we would have had to get a greater amount on our NOI. And I think we were figuring 76,000 a year in increase in NOI to make that. If we took everything out and did the 900, we'd have to figure out where we're going to find that extra 76,000 a year in NOI to get to that 30% refi. So we were kind of like on that cusp, and we thought, well, we're better off just doing operational efficiencies to increase value, see where we're at, then make those incremental increases to get to that point where we can refi as cheaply as possible. So
I love this. So Mike, you've talked about the buy right, you've talked about the finance, you've talked about the manage right. Is there anything else left that we got to discuss? Oh, great. Excellent. Love that.
Oh, we changed property managers. So that's another thing. If the property management team isn't performing and you're setting expectations and they're not fulfilling them, make a quick change. I think that's another thing that we learned. Ability to raise rents without deploying 100% of the capital. That was another benefit.
Yes.
But really make quick decisions, and know what your return on investments are for your CapEx and any of your terms. I think that's an important thing for us. But our current status right now is, we've withheld CapEx, like I said, or withheld distributions to use for CapEx and unit turns, raised rents to those amounts, removed all non-paying tenants. And this is the big one. We've actually started to reduce our water quite a bit. From 69,000 a year to 26,400 thereabouts, which increased us at a 6.5 cap at $665,000 in value. So year to date, we're probably at 1.5 in value creation on this property. And we're looking to refi, like I said, in a couple months to try to pull out our money to use in this upcoming opportunity with this market. So
Mike Petrocchi, you are very well-intentioned of not going in the single families and going into multifamily, because you know how many single family homes you'd have had to buy to achieve that kind of success. I mean, to have $1.5 million and this is a much, I wouldn't say easier, but it's just a much more efficient property to manage. So you made the right decision on going into multifamily.